Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to another episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is that time of the week again. It's Sunday and it is match day review showtime. And as always, you can see I'm joined by a familiar face, Reese of German Gills. And I'm pleased to say that this week we have the pleasure of the company of Dan Palmer. He is, of course, a Crawley Town fan. He's on Twitter at DanP_89. I will put his details in the description at the bottom of the video, like I do every week. So go and give him a follow. Dan, first of all, appreciate you coming on
No
to
problem.
dissect what was probably a frustrating afternoon from a Crawley Town point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely the word that nearly all of us used as we left the ground yesterday. Just the overriding emotion was frustration. Don't necessarily think we did enough to win the game, but I think you got away with one a little bit. I think probably a draw was a fair result yesterday over the course of the 90 minutes. But big moments change games, don't they? You miss a penalty, and then you don't block a cross coming in when you've got plenty of your players in the box, ready to tap it in, and that's it. It's such a game of fine margins, but yeah, frustration is definitely the word I'd use. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think from our point of view, Reece, it's certainly it's one that for the first time I think we'll sit here and absolutely say we got away with one a little bit at least on Saturday afternoon, didn't we? I'm not saying
Yeah.
because again you look at possession and that type of thing, and Crawley had loads, but we'll get on to the whys and wherefores and the nitty gritty of the game itself. But in terms just of watching with a naked eye, our performance probably wasn't good enough to deserve all 3 points over the 90 minutes.
No, I think Crawley will play worse than win this season as well. And I think we will play better and lose this season. It was just, I think if you had to sum it up in a sentence or so, that pretty much would underpin it. But no, it was, as we were talking about it, and I think you tweeted something similar, Matt, like we dug in for that one. We really dug in and got a result. And I've heard a lot of people say it's a sign of a good team that if you play poor and can still win. I just hope that we don't put that performance out moving forward that regularly, because I think other teams will turn us over quite quickly. And you said, Dan, that Crawley deserved, had enough to get a point. I actually think you did enough to win the game, maybe even comfortably as well. I thought we really got away with that one. And Matt, you screw your face up a little bit on that one, but I thought Crawley looked quite good, actually, in fairness to them.
Oh no, not disputing the performance, and we'll get there. But I just think, and I've got a question for Dan later on. My only question mark over whether Crawley deserved to win comfortably was for all their possession and all their shots. Yeah. Did they work Jake Turner enough and fully extend him? I know the penalty save and that type of thing, but let's not ruin the show. Let's go back to 2 p.m. And look at team news like we always do. And Crawley Town lined up in a 3-4-1-2, I think it was, Dan. So it was Corey Addai goal. Your centre backs were obviously new arrival from us, Will Wright, Conroy and Ransom as well. 4 in front were Campbell, Williams, Kelly, and Cerula. And then you had Darcy flanking Telford and Horsey, which I thought was fairly flexible. So I'm saying 3-4-1-2, but I think there was times when Telford might have gone wider and which allowed Darcy to run through the middle, or it was just very interchangeable. Gills set up in a familiar 4-4-1-1/4-4-2 system that we've seen throughout the league game so far. Jake Turner in goal. It's the same back four that's played every league game. Shea Alexander, Maxima, Shadogi and Scott Malone. Sean Williams returned to the starting 11 to captain the side alongside Ethan Coleman. It was then Johnny Williams and Dom Jeffries from the sides and Tom Nichols supporting Ashley Nadersson. I think Neil Harris was very clear in his pre-match press conference and said, Crawley are going to have a lot of the ball. Crawley are going to boss possession. We knew that. It was going to be another different type of challenge for the Gills. Stockport went fairly long to Nick Powell opening day. Accrington and Sutton do exactly what they say on the tin. Like they get balls into your box and play from there. So this was going to be a completely different type of opposition that we'd faced all season. Southampton in the cup, but they made lots of changes. But in terms of League Two, you don't get loads of sides that want to keep it and play through the thirds. That was how the game played out. We had to spend a lot of time without the ball. We had to spend a lot of time being rigid and in our shape. Reece, though, we didn't start, did we? 15 minutes. I put down loose with and without the ball. It just looked like people were passing on responsibility. We kept giving up cheap possession when we did turn the ball over. Shadogi got himself a really daft yellow card on the halfway line when the fella's running towards his own goal. I think there was chances for Darcy and Telford, albeit from the edge of the box, and one straight at Jake Turner and one that got dragged harmlessly wide. But the most dangerous moment I thought in the first 10, 15 minutes was the Will Wright corner. We were stood right in front of it, and I'm not sure it was at the back post. Dan can probably help us out. I thought we should have scored. He got round the back and seemed to be unmarked, but we just were stuck in. Well, I'd say second gear was generous for the first quarter of an hour.
Yeah, I think we were. I mean, it was considering how well we started games previously. I mean, it felt a little bit reminiscent of last season where we took a while to get going, actually. But
Yeah,
I really did. Or 6 months, yeah, that's fair. Get that timeline right. No, but really though, it was quite a shock to me that we started. I knew Crawley got possession, like you've already alluded to, but yeah, it was a real pain. Like I think the first highlight I put in my video was after a minute, and I thought, okay, Crawley going to come with some real intention, and we just never recovered from that short burst that Crawley had in the first minute, and yeah, we really found it difficult to get into this game, and we did look out of sorts, almost as if like Crawley had surprised us somehow. And we were suddenly on the real back foot, but no, the Crawley came at us with possession and intent, and we had to really adjust our gameplay to try and match that. And we struggled with that for a lot of the game, actually, not just the first 15 minutes, but we had nothing really to shout about the first 15 minutes because everyone was still seemingly trying to find their place on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan, from your point of view, you must have been really encouraged with the first quarter of an hour. Reece has alluded to the chance that was, I think, after a minute or so, which was Darcy straight at Jake Turner. It was comfortable enough. But then the big moment of the first half came at that stage anyway, and that was a penalty. There was a few Gills fans around me that were screaming abuse at the referee, and I had to laugh. It was an absolute stonewaller. I'm not sure it was Cerula tries to flick it in behind, and I think Shay Alexander, I know it's in close proximity, but his arm's out to the side and it hits him on the hand, and you've got no choice but to give it as a referee. There you go, Reece. I'm praising a referee. And I always say with these types of decisions, if it's the other way round, Gills fans would be screaming spot kick if it's in your box. So for me, correct decision. Probably what you deserve, Dan, on the balance of play for the first quarter of an hour, a chance to get yourselves in front.
Yeah, I'd say so. On the penalty itself, I actually thought from my position, I thought it was quite harsh. I actually got a friend who is a Gills fan, unfortunately. He was in the away end, and I messaged him straight away before the penalty even got taken and said that looked very harsh. Yes, it hit his hand. Yeah, obviously, and was he sort of denying a potential, chance to score? Yes, I guess so, probably. I think it's just the fact that he was like, a yard away and it got thumped straight at his hand. I mean, yes, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I guess, they did hit his hand. And in terms of the penalty, yeah, I think over the course, obviously I was listening to what you were saying there, Reece, like over the course of, as we started very well. We've started all the games this season very well. We've really started on the front foot. I think Lindsay's got them sort of well drilled straight off the, straight from the get-go, really. I think we created enough in that first 15 minutes to argue, yeah, we probably did deserve to take the lead. And yeah, it's just unfortunate the penalty was not good, we'll say.
No, it's not. And I'm a defender, so I don't stick up for strikers. But I suppose if Jake Turner goes the other way and it rolls in the corner, everyone goes, "Oh, it's a brilliant penalty. It's as calm as you like from Tom Telford." But
yeah,
Jake Turner has to guess the right way. He's come out and said in his interview that I think Tom Nichols gave him a little point just before Telford started his run up. But
yeah,
I've seen another few fans have said you should have let Will Wright take it, because Will Wright from spot kicks and free kicks is absolutely superb, and I thought he was very good on the day, Will Wright, to be fair. But just on that, I can't agree with it not being a penalty. I was in the side of that terrace, so I wasn't behind the goal. So I was literally in line with the 6-yard line. So I've got a really good view of it. I had a good view of the linesman flagging offside for both teams when he wasn't up with play as well, but that's for another day. I couldn't see any other decision than penalty. I really, really couldn't. I know an angle's distort it. What did you think, Reece? Because obviously you watch it from obviously iFollow's perspective. So what was your first reaction? Pen or not sure or no?
As soon as Alexander said, I thought he's giving that. There's no way he's not giving that. I think that, that's kind of what I said. It's usually when a situation happens like that, I'm unsure. I'm kind of like, oh, might be a pen or not. When it hit his hand, I'm like, I think the ref's going to give a penalty here, because for me, it's just one of those unfortunate moments. He's in a defensive position. And he's just trying to maybe use his hands, obviously, for balance. And the ball's popped up, it's hit his hand. Like there's no other thing the referee can do, unfortunately. And as you've already said, Matt, if it happened the other way around, we'll be screaming for it. And I think Crawley Town fans were screaming for it. So, you know, it works both ways. And for me, 100% a penalty, even though unintentional and unfortunate. But that's what happens in football sometimes. And the penalty was awarded.
But it was just very in keeping with how we'd started the game, just a little bit lackadaisical, and like I say, we were just coasting a little bit, and I couldn't work it out because the intensity's been brilliant. Maybe it's just a little bit of 5 games in 17 days that's just caught up with us, and I think a free week on the training ground for both teams will do them good now before the next league game coming next Saturday. But there was another chance straight after the penalty. I don't mean the rebound. I mean that was scuffed. It's an instant reaction from the other player who has to try and get it on target. But a couple of minutes later, I think there was a ball in from the right-hand side after a corner, and Will Wright was still up. I think Will Wright does everything that he can. Angles against him, heads it into the floor, and Jake Turner, I think it hits him in the chest. It's a comfortable enough save, but it was just another point where we weren't getting out. We were being pinned in by Crawley, and I think it was a mixture of them doing a lot of stuff well and us doing a lot of stuff not very well. But that was sort of 20 minutes gone, and I just thought we hadn't laid a glove on Crawley at all, and it looked at that point like it was going to be a really long afternoon. And Dan, again, you must have been thinking, if we carry on like this, one goes in, and then you're thinking, right, Gills have then got to react and play a different way because we're very good at defending leads. I don't think anyone can argue with that at the moment. But it'd have been interesting to see how we'd reacted if we had conceded the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned, my friend, he was at Sutton on Tuesday night. He's been to the home games for you guys, and he said, "I
think I know who your friend is."
No, it's another one. But not that one. I'm not too sure he's a friend after his comment on in the preview show, but we'll move on from that. But yeah, he said that you were very good defensively, and I think you could see that once you'd scored the goal. You know, you're very, very sort of. If I'm honest, it reminded me a little bit of a Steve Evans side. You know, very sort of disciplined, organised, big, strong side. Knew their roles. You know, and yeah, it's obviously if the penalty goes in, that changes the game completely because then you've got to come at us.
We've got to come out and play and open up.
Yeah, and then I think that would have benefited us a lot. You know, we're very, very good passing and moving team, as you've already alluded to, and
absolutely.
You know, we sort of, I think probably would have gone on to do really well in the game, but yeah, it's just very unfortunate. I mean, the way we played against Salford, especially, we absolutely battered Salford, and it reminded me a little bit of yesterday. Although we did score against Salford, there was so many chances that we missed. So many. We hit the bar from a yard out. I think in that game we hit the woodwork 4 times. So away from home as well. So it was very frustrating. But but I think we're definitely at our best when teams want to attack at us, because then it just sort of opens up so many spaces, so much for us to be able to do. But as it was, missed the penalty. You guys sort of didn't sort of shut up shop, but you got your goal, and then you sort of went, well, come on, then let's come at us and
come and try and break us down. Yeah,
we obviously we couldn't, which was very frustrating. But you know, you could argue that you deserved it in a way because you did exactly what you needed to do. Yeah,
and as much as you're frustrated, because there's been a lot of noise from outside the club.
Yeah.
And I do a YouTube channel. I do a season preview video. I had you 24th, and I got battered by a few Crawley fans. But I said, all I can go off is what I see from an outsider's perspective. I don't know the ins and outs and the workings of the club on a day-to-day basis like Crawley Town fans do. So I guess my point is, number one, there's obviously your team talk's essentially written every week.
Yeah.
Go and prove everyone wrong. But regardless of all that, even with the start that you've had, despite the defeat to Gills, you've played 4 teams that most pundits, fans, experts would have challenging around the top 7 all season. You played Bradford, Salford, MK Dons and Gillingham, and you've taken 7 points. You must be absolutely over the moon with the start.
Yeah, it's definitely not what we expected. There was so much chat when the fixtures, obviously off the back of last season, we were just so happy to be able to stay in a division. It was really sort of touch and go. And when we saw that, when then obviously as the sort of season progressed, pre-season progressed, we started to lose what you would call sort of our key players from last season. Our player of the season left, Jack Powell, he went to Crewe. We had James Tilley, who was a great winger, always sort of buzzing around the box, like creating chance and stuff. He went to Wimbledon.
I think he's already scored a couple for them as well, hasn't he? I think, he started really well.
Yeah, so he went there. We had Remy Ote that signed for Walsall. He, towards the end of the season, really sort of stepped up and was making some fantastic sort of performances week in, week out for us. So when you're losing them, and then you see sort of the fixtures of when it first came out, there was a lot of us that were thinking, are we going to get a win before Christmas here? Like, it was just one of them. We had so many, I think, and obviously you mentioned the fixtures we've had. The fixtures we've now got coming up is Swindon away, and then Stockport away. Obviously Swindon went sort of towards the top end last season for the majority of it, and then Stockport were obviously in the playoff final. So with the teams that have gone and what we've got coming up, we were thinking, my God, like this is going to be a slog. But yeah, Dream World is really where we're at the moment. 7 points from 4 games against, like you said, teams that are. I fully expect yourselves and MK Dons to go up. Salford, always in and around the playoffs. Away is never an easy game. So especially when you've got a team that were literally scraped through by the skin of our teeth, avoiding relegation last season, to beat an MK Dons, should have beaten Salford 4-5-6-1. And then obviously beating Bradford, who are another massive side for this division on opening day. It's been quite enjoyable to look forward to going to football again. Last season was such a mental drain throughout last season. It's just, as we were saying before the game yesterday, it's actually nice to stand and have a beer and sort of go, actually looking forward to this game today, because you don't often feel that being a Crawley Town.
You literally sound like we were up until when the takeover came. Before it was horrific. Like, I was going to home games purely because I bought a season ticket.
Yeah.
When we got relegated into League Two, I had all these visions of going to all these new away grounds. I went to Wimbledon first day of last season. I didn't go to anyone away until December the 29th. And then after that, it was only games once the takeover had happened. It literally sounds like a mirror image. And just from my own personal point of view, I can't speak for the whole Gills fan base, but I really hope you do continue to progress and do well, because I think in Scott Lindsay, I think you've got a terrific manager at the level.
Yeah, he's superb. There's obviously, as you alluded to, there's been a lot of chat about obviously our ownership and stuff like that. One thing through gritted teeth I want to say is they definitely got Scott Lindsay right. He came in, the club was literally at war with each other. The fans were against the owners. It wasn't a nice place to be at all. And like you said, like, I had a season ticket last season. So, you go because you paid for it, and, you want to go. It wasn't a nice place to be. Fans are against each other. Fans are against the owners. Fans are against the players. And he walked in and he sort of went, right, I'm here now. This is what we're going to do. Let all the background noise be the background noise. We focus on ourselves. We focus on the pitch, and this is what we'll do. And to be fair to him, I genuinely believe if he hadn't have come in, then we'd be down. I think he picked up a broken squad which was in the pits with morale and all that type of thing. We were just gone. He had a spell actually of, I think we had about 5 away games in 6. So obviously last season with a couple of postponements here and there, FA Cup, weather. We had, I think, 5 away games in 6, of which they were, very tough games. Can't remember all of them off the top of my head. Sutton was one, Barrow was another, I think. But I remember being at Sutton away on the Tuesday night. We got pumped 3-0 and we were terrible. And I think that was like the 5th defeat on the trot. And I remember at full time looking up, fans obviously just trying to say everything they wanted to the players. Players were barely coming over. They didn't want to sort of stand there and just get abuse, which is, understandable. Saw Scott Lindsay just standing, hands in pockets on the halfway line looking at us. And I sort of thought to myself, what's he thinking? Like, he's obviously come from Swindon. I think we're around sort of 6th or 7th at the time. Come down to us thinking, what have I got myself in for here? From there, honestly, from that night, he changed it completely. We the team, I think, fully bought into what he wanted to do. It wasn't pretty at times towards the end of the season, but we got the job done. And I think now he's had that full pre-season with the squad. He's brought in the players that he wanted to bring in. He has really sort of reduced. Like this club is like the team is just, it's chalk and cheese from last season. The football is chalk and cheese. It's honestly, it's so refreshing to see. But because although last season was only one season, if you like, it felt like 20 seasons. It went on for so long, and it was just such, like I said, a mental drain. And it's just been so refreshing. And he deserves so much credit for everything that he's done since coming in. He's been unbelievable.
Plenty of similarities to us. The thing you said about having to work with other players that are not his and trying to galvanise and it not being pretty. That was Neil Harris when he came in, and we was at that point when he took over and we got relegated out of League One. We were 10 points adrift, and we were like, "What is this bloke coming out of the Championship doing? Coming to a team that's you're essentially writing a relegation on your CV," and he nearly pulled it off. It went. I
was going to say he nearly kept you up, didn't he?
It went to the final day, but yeah, it was just I think we just ran out of steam. Anyway, we've gone off on a tangent, but a really interesting tangent. I'm really glad I asked, and it's great to see that Crawley fans similar to us are now in a position where they're looking forward to going to football matches again. But let's get back to the game, Reece. We finally created a half chance, I think around the half-hour mark. I think the ball got clipped into sort of the right-back channel in behind Crawley's back line. I think Dom Jeffries was the one that escaped and was scampering after it. Corey Addo went walkabout and ended up near the touchline over the far side. Dom Jeffries, unfortunately, I think got caught in two minds whether to shoot or cross and did neither, and it just floated out for a goal kick. But yeah, I've written down it took us 30 minutes to start being able to have an element of control of the game, of the pace of the game and dictating how it was being played. And I just thought that, from 30 minutes up until certainly the goal, that was the only real time in the first period where we actually played the game consistently in Crawley's half.
Yeah, it was. And it's like we suddenly worked out how we could play against this Crawley team. And then we started to play a little bit more open play. We were testing things out. We were trying to make different runs. It looked like we were trying to experiment to get to that point. But eventually, when we started to play our game, that's when, like you say, after 30 minutes, we started to find our feet and gave Crawley something to think about. And ultimately, I think which obviously led up towards to the goal. I think it was on the 41st minute. I think it was somewhere around there anyway. But yeah, that's probably that period of time from when it was 30 minutes up until probably when the halftime whistle blew. That was probably our strongest moment of the whole game. And luckily, that's where the goal fell. I mean, Crawley had the rest of the game to try and find a goal. But luckily for us, we used our time efficiently and effectively to put it in the back of the net. And I think that's ultimately the winning goal. It came from that specific period of time. And luckily, we were able to fend off Crawley for the rest of the game. But it was that specific period of play when we were only in that time period where we were probably the better team, I think.
Yeah, and even then we needed a helping hand, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
To a degree. I thought Shadogi done really well. I think the first phase of play was cleared and it come out to him. I think he'd taken the throw in initially. That's why he was that high up that side.
There's something in. There's something in. You're probably about to describe the goal. That goal for me was something about that was really, really good. There was two players involved in that were really strong. So Sean Williams, because initially the long throw came in from OG, and then it kind of fell and it didn't really. No one really got hold of it until Sean Williams got the ball back to OG, and that particular pass back was. He really wanted to get that back out because you could have fought for that in the box and Crawley could have won it and cleared it, but actually it went back to OG. And then he had Dom Jeffries on his right-hand side to lay off to give a cross to. And this goes to show maybe the confidence he has at the moment because he took on his man as a centre-back playing in the left mid, which says to me he's got some real confidence moving forward and can create some chances, in which he did. He took on I don't know who it was he took on. Was it Ransom he took on in the end, or no, that was the own goal. So it must be Conroy. I can't quite remember, or Campbell. But he got past his man and then whacked it into the box. And luckily, it deflected the correct way for us off Crawley centre back and went in the goal. But it was a really nice, confident piece of play from OG and supported by Williams in that sense. And I just thought, even though it was a really scrappy goal, there was some really good decision making leading up to it. And I thought it was actually quite a nice piece of play from Gillingham.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, because Williams, like you say, the tendency maybe if the ball is dropping out the sky to Williams, he could have lashed at it and had a shot, but he's got the composure and the experience to go, right, there's an overload that side. I want to ask Dan though, from a defensive point of view, I mean, it wasn't the most intricate of dummies, was it? Ogie kind of stopped and then went into a little sprint to get to the byline, and the defender fell for it.
Yeah.
I suppose he's not expecting a centre half to do that on the touchline. I guess would be the only defence I'd give for the poor defending. I suppose it was a kind of rock and hard place from a Crawley perspective. If Harry Ransom doesn't tuck it into his own net, Tom Nichols does, so which would have probably been even worse. But I guess if we're nitpicking, I thought the defender who was out there with Ogie could have done a little bit better.
Yeah. On a side note, I thought he was your man of the match yesterday, Ogie. I thought he was superb.
I think he's got man of the match every single game. So
yeah, he when you get booked in the 3rd minute, you sort of think, right, here we go. Let's target.
He's got 3 of them as well already.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Right. I thought he was superb, and defensively it wasn't great. It's just very frustrating to create, like I said, as much as we did, to be in this. We were in the ascendants nearly all half, as you mentioned, Reece. Like it wasn't until Matt, it's like 30 minutes until you really managed to get anything, and just a sloppy sort of you don't block across, and it's just a tap in, and you sort of think, after everything we've done, and it was also just such a kick in the when we miss a penalty and create chances, then you go down the other end and get a goal like that. It's just very, very annoying.
It is, yeah. And to be fair, I don't think there's anything Ransom can do anymore, because if he doesn't try and cut it out, you moan at him for not trying to get there. So I think he's in a lose-lose situation in that position. But yeah, I certainly thought the covering centre back or fullback could have just done a little bit more to stop the cross. You could have just stood him up, couldn't you, rather than allowing him to go to the byline. But it's easy for us to sit here and say after the event. Half-time whistle blew shortly after that, and I think the feeling was very much in the Gills end of one of relief, and that I'd have taken 0-0. Really, really would have done. So to have been 1-0 up was a real bonus. And I spoke to Nick to do the half-time analysis on the Matchday Live, and he said, it's been a real smash and grab to this point. I mean, because people said that it was a smash and grab at Stockport, and I didn't agree with that at all. I thought we'd had moments in the game where we were very good, but this certainly felt a lot more like it was that case. I mean, we're not talking, hand over your credit card and buy everyone a drink just yet, but it was certainly a game that Crawley deserved to be at least level from. Second half, Reece, we didn't learn, and we started really slowly again, didn't we? And we gave away 2 really cheap chances. I think the first one was a ricochet, and it fell to Orsey. Doesn't catch it, which was lucky for us, and scuffed it straight through to Jake Turner. I think if he gets a proper connection and it's either side of Jake, that's 1-1. And then suddenly Gills have got 45 minutes to defend against a crowd that's up and a team that's shooting towards their own fans at that end. Then he had another one. There was a decent bit of interchangeable play, and he drilled one wide. I think it was almost like he wanted the connection from the second shot with the move from the first one, and they'd have probably been level. But yeah, sloppy from us again to start the second period. I then thought the game just settled down from sort of 50 to 60 minutes. It went a bit quiet, and it was the first sort of time in the game where I thought we could all just sort of breathe, not relax. You can't relax when you're chasing a game, and you can't relax when you're 1-0 up and trying to dig in and hold on to it. But I just thought it was the first period in the game where there was like a lull.
Yeah, it calmed down after that. It was, so Orsey, when he made those opportunities, I did think, because it's one of those things, like if one of those goes in, like you said, there's the turning point of the game, and that goes in the home side's favour easily, and then we're holding on to get a point, because that's what Crawley desperately needed yesterday, was just a goal, even if it's just to get everyone's spirits back up and give something else to push on for. It didn't fall for them. Unfortunately, it was unfortunately for them, and then luckily for us. But that's all it needed. It really needed that. So when it, like you say, when it settled down a little bit and everyone was just, no one was really getting a hold of the game in the middle of the second half. I know you use the word, you don't relax, but it definitely felt like that in comparison to the rest of the game. It was just a moment of nondescript football that was kind of being played. And I think I think Gillingham to a certain extent kind of forced that a little bit. We're putting men behind the ball, making it difficult for Crawley to get through. And then also we were making advances as well. And you probably talk about the time we hit the crossbar as well. But we weren't out just trying to always hold on a 1-0 lead. We were trying to double our advantage. You could see that was part of our game plan as well. And it just, as it turned out, we did hold on to that 1-0 lead, but we were making advances forward as well in that second half. But yeah, I think just to sort of bottom line that if Crawley did get a goal, particularly in that second half, I think we're talking about a different scoreline, obviously, but significantly anyway. And it's luckily we didn't concede, because I think that would have changed the game
it'd come back
entirely.
to how we have to react again, wouldn't it? Would we have been gone and tried to be open to try and pinch a second, or would we have tried to sit on a 1-1 and gone, right, this isn't a bad point away from home against the side that started well? So it'd have been another sort of question to be answered and a challenge to be faced head on. I think Reece is right though, Dan. We weren't without our moments second half. Again, you had more of the ball. I get that. I've not looked at where you've had the ball, because I think you made something ridiculous overall. Just looking at the stats, you completed 512 passes, but I'd imagine a fair portion of them are probably sort of on the halfway line where we can let you do it. It's when you get into the final third where it becomes more key. But we had the next two chances of the game. I think there was a Sean Williams corner that got headed back across goal. Shadrach Ogie headed it towards goal, and I think Will Wright, I'm not saying it was going in, but it was going towards the far post, and Will Wright cleared it. And it eventually dropped, I think, to Scott Malone, who dug out a shot. I think he got it caught under his feet, and Corey Adai was comfortable enough, just put his hands up and palmed it over the bar. But the big one was shortly after. Again, another ex-player, obviously. It had to be Ashley Nadersson crashed a half volley against the crossbar after a bit of pinball. To say one way is obviously if Crawley get the equaliser, I think their tails are up. They could ultimately go on and win the football match. I think if one of them chances for Gills goes in, though, I'd imagine we'd have seen it out fairly comfortably, and we might have gone and got a third, because Crawley would have then had to be really, really open. So it's always a lot of ifs and buts, isn't it? And that's the beauty of it. What were you making of that sort of first half of the second half, Dan? Was, again, you must be frustrated because you were getting into good areas, but I think we were still making your backline be very aware, at least, that there was a threat if we was able to break, because we were soaking up lots of pressure. You said that we had to sit in our shape, and we was definitely playing on the counter attack during the second period.
Definitely. I think you've always got to be wary, especially with someone like Naders. He's got such pace. He's so quick. So you've always got to be wary that the counter attack is an option, especially against teams with people that possess so much pace like Naders. But yeah, I think you mentioned the lull, did you, between 50, 60 minutes, something like that. I've definitely felt that. It actually felt like a little bit like our previous games. We seemed to start like an absolute, steam engine or whatever, and then sort of it drops a little bit, and then we pick it up again. It's like we give out our absolute everything, calm it down, get back into sort of where we need to be and go again. But yeah, those chances, I think if one of them goes in, I think that's done. I think it completely knocks the stuffing out of us. So yeah, pleased obviously neither of them went in, especially the second chance. But yeah, I think if either one of them goes in, we're done for. There's no coming back. The players have given absolutely everything to try and get back into the game. When that happens, if a second goal goes in, that's it, isn't it, really, I think?
Yeah, you'd have to back us to see it out. I mean, we've seen off teams with just a single goal this season. So if we'd gone to two, I think it would have been, I think we'd have seen it out fairly comfortably. Be nice to get two, wouldn't it, Reece? Just to give the old ticker a rest last half hour of these football matches, because I'm not sure I can go through an entire campaign like this.
No, I can't imagine a whole season where we just score one goal and hope we hang on to a nil, because that would be a season of delight, but also a season where I'd have to go to the hospital, I think, as well, because I don't think I could cope with that.
We mentioned that first lull, 50 to 60 minutes. We then had the chances for Gills. There was the chances for Crawley before the lull. I then thought there was another lull from sort of 65 to 75 minutes. There was a lot of changes. I think Johnny Williams had to come off injured. He'd been rattled into I thought was a fairly poor challenge. I said at the time, that's an orange. That's somewhere in between. I think ultimately the referee got it correct, but I just thought the lad was a bit high and I'm not saying he was trying to do Johnny Williams, but I thought it was a bit out of control. But I think yellow was fine. Again, if it had been the other way round, I'd have probably said yellow card. So we'll give the referee that one as well. I think Crawley were making changes. Telford come off. There was a couple of others. So that, again, the rhythm of the game got disrupted for sort of a 10-minute period. But then to to sort of back up what Dan said about their previous games, Crawley then came on strong again, and I've got to talk about this block because it was absolutely ridiculous from Shadrach Ogie. I think first of all, Crawley worked it really well from right to left, and Harry Ransom, I think, was one of the centre halves who obviously is trying to rectify his own goal. Not that there's a lot of blame I put on him personally. He absolutely catches it, doesn't he? I'm not sure. You were sat in the main stand, weren't you, Dan? So you wasn't behind it. You was to the side of it like we were. But for me, it just, you can just tell. For me, it felt like it was on target and it was going to go in. If Shadrach Ogie just appears like some sort of stunt man and takes it full in the face. And I looked around and I said, he might have to come off it. Like, he looked like he could have been concussed. The force of that shot. But no, he was up within about 10 seconds because he's an absolute madman. And then there was another chance. I think the lads, I can't think of his name, Cloyidi Lolos, is it?
Yeah, Lolos, yeah.
He was one of the subs, I think, in that triple change that Scott Lindsay had made, and he took aim from 20 yards, and I think that was probably I'm trying to think of the right words, where Jake Turner was extended the most. He made saves. I mean, the penalty, it's a penalty. You either go the right way, you go the wrong way. It's a bit of a lottery, and he got up and he saved the rebound. But most things were straight at him, or what I'd class as comfortable saves. But that I felt was a big save. He had to get up high and fling his hand up to put it round a post for a corner. But then the game just sort of petered out, and that was the end. And it was when we had a couple of chances to counter, and I thought we picked the wrong pass. Macaulay Bond threatened to get in. Jaden Clark had one shot blocked when we finally got the final ball correct, but there was good covering defenders. I've got a question for you again, Dan. Based on the game and based on the fact that you watch Crawley all the time, despite all your possession, did you work or at least fully extend Jake Turner enough based on all the ball and all the good areas you got into? I'm not disputing the fact that Crawley to Town deserved something from the game. Absolutely not, because you were the better side for vast periods of it. But again, coming back to that word that you used a couple of times, frustration, was you frustrated that the only real time that Turner was extended was in the last 10 minutes when Lolos had that go from about 20 yards? I think there was 5 shots on target first period. You could obviously say one's a penalty, one's the rebound, and one's Darcy first minute that goes straight down his throat. So not hard saves to make. I think aside from that second period, there's only 2 shots on target, again, for all your possession. The early one, that's a scuff again, and then the one that we've just mentioned, the big stop with his left hand. Is that something that, as a Crawley fan, you feel if you can just be a little bit more clinical around opposition 18-yard boxes, then you're going to win even more football matches and you're going to improve and take that next step potentially?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, like I mentioned, the Salford game, we hit the woodwork 4 times alone in that game. I think if we were, I know it sounds silly because we've obviously got Dom Telford playing for us, who I don't really think has reached his potential with us yet. Obviously, he scored what he did with Newport a couple of seasons ago. Last season, he was a bit hit and miss, and he hasn't started this season too well. But I actually still think we need a proper goal scorer. I don't think Orsey's a very, very good striker. He's an all-round striker, I feel, but I don't feel he's that fox in the box, if you like. To get them sort of them goals that don't look glamorous, but they all count type goals. From what I've seen this season, I think if you look at the stats from every game, I haven't personally looked at the stats from every game, but if you were to look at them, I think we'd be dominating in shots, possession, passes, that type of thing. But we're just not finishing off what we should be. If we do that, I don't want it to sound like biased, because I'm really not that biased, but I think if we do finish off what we create every game so far, we win all 4.
Bradford, you had 19 shots, 3 on target.
Yeah.
So again, you're getting in. It shows you're getting into right. I'm not going to worry about the cup games because it's a completely different competition. Salford, 15 shots, 1 on target.
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah,
it's an app I use. It might not be 100% correct, but again, it shows there's a large. It's a small portion of what you're actually. The shots you're having are actually going on target.
Yeah, it kind of says to me as well, like if the shots aren't going on target, are they a little bit further out? Are they not, are they in and maybe outside the box a little
That
bit?
would be my next, because that was what it felt like yesterday. Plenty were coming from sort of the edge of the box, the D, or further afield. 14 shots on target, 14 shots, 5 on target against MK Dons, and yesterday 17 shots, 7. So it has improved in the last 2 games. You're looking at around sort of 40%. So I suppose it comes back to that word clinical again. Like you said, you need a fox in the box. I think that's something that Gills have lacked, and I'm hoping we've got it now. Macaulay Bomb once he gets up to full speed. But yeah, I've said, I quoted the Crawley Town full-time tweet yesterday and said that Crawley Town will be nowhere near the bottom if they continue to play games like that. They're going to surprise a lot more people. And I say surprise with the utmost respect, because obviously, like I said before, we can only go on what we see from the outside. Your supporter base and Scott Lindsay and his coaching staff know a lot more and see the players on a day-to-day basis. So I think Crawley will be absolutely fine based on what I've seen. It would take one hell of a drop-off, I think, for them to be in any sort of bother, Reece. Come to you, though. And ironically, I think Scott Lindsay said the same about his team. That was comfortably our worst display of the season. But sign of a good team, winning when you're not at your best and you're having to do all the ugly stuff. And we've done plenty of the ugly stuff to get over the line. And if there's one thing that this group of players certainly knows how to do at the moment, that's defend a lead.
Yeah, I've got to say as well, one of the moments for me is you talk about OG getting a yellow card after 2 minutes, a silly yellow card. And to then put a performance like that for the rest of the game, I mean, just shows a great piece of footballing brain and character to know that you're carrying that yellow, knowing there's always a risk of you just missing the ball or having a late tackle or being a little bit too strong in a challenge and you being sent off. I think to be still that prolific in the back line and still be have a huge impact on a yellow card that early on shows how well he has been playing in that back line for me. And Dan, you said that was your man of the match yesterday. I mean, I do feel like that he's always getting man of the match, but it's always warranted, you see. But like you say, Matt, we dug in yesterday and we really. Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about, like, with that new information of the statistics that you've given with Crawley over the last few games. I was going to say, if you played that game 100 times in a similar manner as yesterday, I was going to say maybe Crawley would come out on top over us specifically. But considering that Crawley's percentage stats of shots on target are increasing, actually, that seems to be your crux at the moment, is you're not being that clinical up top. And it was definitely exposed yesterday. But also, if that's like us was your worst performance of the season so far, that can, in its own way, can only be a positive, because I still thought yesterday you looked really, really good. And also, it's a fantastic advert for players coming up from the non-league as well. There are some real diamonds down there, because a lot of your team is based around players that have just either I've not had any EFL experience, I don't think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been reading on Twitter and social media. So actually, there are some real diamonds down there, and you can put a decent team together. And if that's the worst you've played so far this season, you'll play worse and you'll win. And that's kind of how I feel with Crawley. And with that information, I do think Crawley should be comfortable this season, really. And that's why Gillingham really had to dig deep. And we rode our luck yesterday, and I think we're very, very lucky to walk away with 3 points. I think we would have been very lucky to walk away with a point, if I'm honest. I think that would be the same line I would go with if we'd happened to draw yesterday as well. But yeah, I'm sure I don't speak for all Gillingham fans in that context, but I'm sure a lot of them would agree with that as well. But yeah, that's kind of my overall take of what the question you kind of asked there, in that.
I think, yeah, and there's an interesting point you made about Ogie, because I don't know if Dan noticed it as well, but I thought after the yellow card, there was a couple that left one on him just to see if he'd react. I thought, and then I think they sort of worked out that he wasn't reacting. I think there was, might have been Horsey or Darcy, that you've got so many people that need a haircut, Dan, honestly.
The same can't be said for the fans, mate. Same can't be said for the fans.
We said in the ground, we just got to walk a tightrope. If he reacts, he's going to be in trouble. But I noticed second half, they didn't try it, because they just got absolutely no change out of him at all. And yeah, he looks like one hell of a find. And I've said this so many times already. Leighton Orient centre half must have been absolutely incredible last season if he only played 10 times in the league, because he's been phenomenal. Back to you, Dan. I want to ask you about Gills, and I want to get your sort of overall perspective of what you think of us as a team. based on predominantly the game, but obviously what you've seen so far, the results. Who stood out? You've already answered that question, so thank you very much. So we'll go to why you think we maybe have enough about us to stay at the top. We get it's only 4 games, or are there reasons why you think that we could potentially drop off? And I'm going to add one reason into why I think, not to put words into your mouth, but we've kept 4 clean sheets, but there's been a goal disallowed at Stockport opening day correctly, so that's fine. There was one at Sutton that I'm not sure should have been disallowed. I think Scott Cashket was onside, and obviously the penalty yesterday. So, as Reece has said, we've rode our luck, but at the same time, you earn your luck. But yeah, just wanted a general overview of what you made of us and how you see our season panning out based on the players that we've got and how we play.
Bar the front 2, which I thought were very ropey. I thought overall you weren't a bad side. Yeah, no, look, I said to my friend, I said, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't think you were anything special, but I thought you were good at what you did, and that was took your chance, and you were very, like I said, very disciplined, very organised. You've got a lot of experience heading that team. But the reason why I think you'll do well this season is Neil Harris, if I'm honest with you. I think he's a fantastic manager. He's obviously been through the leagues. He was at was it Cardiff he was at for a little bit. He was at Millwall, obviously. I think he's a fantastic manager for this level. I remember when you got him at the back end of your League One season, and I thought to myself, he's dropped down to the bottom of League One with respect. The high possibility of being in League Two.
Literally, that's literally what we said. We was like, he's coming in and he's going to write a relegation on his CV. We just could not believe that he signed a 2.5-year contract.
Yeah, and I think I think a lot of people support teams at this level were very surprised. But you gave him the time. You had like we alluded to earlier, a very poor start to life in League Two last season. Obviously at the bottom before the Gallinsons came in. But it shows you what can happen if you give a manager time. I think at this level, people are very quick to bin off a manager after 3 losses, 4 losses, something like that. You've given him the time. It's proven to be the right decision. You've backed him, but I think as well, you've obviously spent money. But you spent money in the right areas on the right players. I think I was gutted to lose Tom Nichols. A few of our fans were sort of like, oh, he doesn't score enough goals. This and that. He's more than a striker. He works his socks off. He comes deep. He gets the ball. He creates chances. He works hard. So I feel like you've bought in the right areas. You bought the right players in the right areas. I think he's got them very organised and very disciplined. And I alluded to earlier. I think I mentioned earlier. You look like a Steve Evans team. Steve Evans teams generally seem to do well, and that's what you look to me. You also reminded me a little bit of Sutton United in a way. Matt Gray last season, Sutton are nothing special, but they play 4-4-2. They know their roles. They're very organised, and it was just very difficult to break down. If you take your chances moving forward, obviously you've got 2 good strikers now. As much as I hate to say it, in Nads and Nico, and obviously Macaulay Bone as well. That
Bill got Ollie Hawkins to come back from injury.
Ollie Hawkins as well, yeah. I just sort of think you take your chances, which you've done in the 4 games that you've played. And with the experience, like I mentioned, you brought in is it Maloney? Scott Malone, sorry, at left back.
Oh, it's been phenomenal. I still can't believe we got him.
Yeah. You've invested well in the right areas, and you've invested with leaders as well, and that is points in itself. Before you even step on the pitch, I feel. I fully believe that you'll be in the top 3 this season. Fully believe that. But yeah, I think obviously you can only look at the next game and go by that. I've seen you've got Colchester at home next game.
Yeah, I've looked at that and gone, oh.
Yeah.
I said before Stockport, if we didn't get beat at Stockport, I could see us going the whole month unbeaten. But I'm looking at that now, it was a horrible banana skin, them being bottom of the league without a point, and us hopefully not thinking we just got to turn up and turn them over. But I'm sure Neil won't allow that to happen.
No, I think he's a fantastic manager for this level, probably one of the best in the league. And with that, investing well in the players that you have done, Malone, Ogie, Nico, very, very sensible, very, very sensible business, I think, in the window. And you often see teams with a bit of money just throw it at whatever they want to do. But oh, we can get him in. Oh, we can afford him. Let's get him in. But you don't seem to have done that. You've been very, very clever, and yeah, I fully believe you'll be top 3 this season.
Still just a start, Reece. Still just a start.
It's just sport. Yeah.
Similar questions to you.
Yeah.
I think, again, and I'll say it with the utmost respect, Crawley surprised us. But that's only going off what we were seeing pre-season and the noise coming off of social media and that type of thing. So we will learn to ask more questions potentially. But I thought they played very well, aside from lacking a clinical edge, I think, which is something that we've been very familiar with.
Yeah.
Certainly started last season. Well, we didn't play well, but we certainly had no clinical edge. I've already said it. They won't be in any danger if they continue to play in a similar vein to they showed against us and shown in their first 3 games in terms of performance and results. Who stood out for you yesterday for Crawley Town, and where do you? I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to say, where do you see Crawley Town finishing this season?
Well, I knew right from the start their signings they wouldn't be in any relegation trouble. I knew they'll be up and thereabouts somewhere. I knew that.
Quickly searches German Gills tweets.
Firstly, for me, yesterday, a player that stood out was Darcy. Undisputed man of the match was Crawley for me. I thought he was everywhere trying to create something, I thought he looked really good on the ball. When I do my commentary of the games, I always kind of think, what name am I saying a lot positively about the opposition team? And Darcy's was the first name I learned really quickly on his number. And I thought that usually means they've either done something horrific or they've done something prolific. And I think it was the latter of that. And I thought Darcy stood out. He was trying to create something. He was in and about. And I thought he was the danger man. He was linking up with the forwards really, really well and was the bridge to the defence. I just thought he looked really solid. I don't know if he's been like that for previous games, but particularly yesterday, I thought he was someone that was changing the game and keeping the momentum for Crawley going forward. So I was impressed with him yesterday. I was a bit disappointed with Telford, actually. I know he missed a penalty, and I've seen a few Crawley tweets saying that sometimes with Telford it's like playing with 10.5 men. Thought that was a little bit harsh, but I can definitely see
literally or metaphorically.
Metaphorically, I think 10 or 10.
But he wasn't. But he was an inch taller than Tom Nichols,
yeah,
though, wasn't he? So that's
he was an inch taller. You're right. But
sorry, I had to bring it up. I couldn't go through the whole episode.
Mate, I'm surprised you've done it. I can't believe it's taken this long.
Well, we did say in the ground, it was like, because obviously we were talking about it. We said they made this comment, like Wagme come out and said, "Oh, he's too similar to Dom Telford, Tom Nichols, whatever it was." And they both, you can't play with 2 short front men. And then I looked around the rest of your team, and I was like, "There's loads of people that are a lot shorter than Dom Telford and Tom Nichols." Like, I wasn't being horrible, but I thought you'd signed Carsten Lord of the Rings at one point. They're good players, and I mean that again. I'm only joking, but I don't know. It's just that's just Wagme, isn't it? Unfortunately, saying the wrong thing and putting their foot in it, which they've done far too often.
Time and time again.
I was enjoying this until you mentioned that W word, mate. But
sorry,
sorry. But I just want to say, I thought Darcy stood up. I thought he was very good. I thought Telford didn't have the game of his life. I actually was. I thought the midfield were okay. Actually, I think holistically, I think if you play like every week, you're going to be fine. Would it be too ambitious to say you're going to be reaching anything at the playoffs? I don't know, but I definitely think you're going to be steering. There are a lot more worse teams out there I can predict already than Crawley Town this year, based on what I saw yesterday. And I think, I suppose I can ask the question, and what is your expectation for the season? What do you want? Because if I gave to you sort of you can finish 12th or 13th, is it a kind of position where you'd bite people's hands off for that?
Yeah, bite the whole body off. It was, it was like that. Like I mentioned, last season was such a mental drain. It was just, and going into this season, obviously, it was tipped by a lot of people. Like Matt said, that we were 24th. We thought it. You guys thought it. Pundits, whatever, thought it. So anything that around mid-table. I at the moment, when I left that game yesterday, like I said, it was frustration. If we're getting frustrated about not being able to get anything out of a team that I believe will be top 3,
and you're going the right way,
that's a good thing. I think the real test will be, I think, like, for example, yesterday, Darcy did play a little bit wider than normally. Normally, he would play through the middle. And I agree, he had a very good game yesterday. He was always trying to create something. We had Kellen Gordon, who's a right winger. He signed from Mansfield when Lindsay came in last season. And he's been one of our best players so far. Unfortunately, did his something to his hamstring against MK Dons on Tuesday. And I did feel we missed he's very direct and runs at players very well on the right-hand side. So I think we did miss him yesterday. Once he's back, and the real test will be how we get through when we pick up the suspensions, how we get through, the injuries that we're going to inevitably pick up. Like I said, mid-table would be a fantastic season. I think with everything that went on last season, with how it is still off the pitch, with the majority of the fan base and the way they feel about the club, the owners, that type of thing. There's so much going on. If we could just have a very sort of steady season on the pitch, I think that's exactly what's needed. Maybe a nice little cut run potentially. But yeah, league is obviously priority when you're a team like us. And I think if we can carry on how we've started, I think mid-table is going to be where we're at. I'm already sort of looking over my shoulder, sort of thinking at the start of the season we were sort of thinking the likes of Sutton, Harrogate, Colchester, Newport, sort of teams around the same size as us. You're looking at potentially down there. So none of them have really started fantastically well. So I'm always sort of still got that last season's mentality of looking at the smaller teams that you think are going to be down there with us. But hopefully, they'll have their own little relegation battle down there this season, and we won't be involved in that. So yeah, hopefully mid-table will be nice sort of steady season.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why not. And just to look at Ronan Darcy's stats and to look at obviously what recent and you have said, 90 minutes played. He had 81 touches, 79% pass completion. There was 3 key passes. He did his defensive duty as well. He won 6 out of 11 ground duels. He didn't win any in the air, but that's not his job. But yeah, earned a couple of free kicks as well. Yeah, so had a very, very good game. Looks a decent player. Like I say, I just wish a few of them had haircuts because then they'd look different because it was impossible to try and work out who was who. I did enjoy a couple of the chants that were going around the away end yesterday. Reece, I'm not sure if you picked them up on iFollow. There was to Dom Telford, which he took in good jest, to be fair to him, a couple of times, and sort of encouraged the away fans to keep singing it. Was, you're just a, and I'll use the PG version, you're just a rubbish Tom Nichols. But my favourite was, who's your best player? We'll sign him next week. That did make me laugh.
I must admit, when you guys are talking about Ronan Darcy, I'm sort of thinking, I hope nobody sees this, because there'll be a big coming in towards the end of August.
Neil has said that we need someone, a creative spark who's a bit versatile at the top end of the pitch, who can play a couple of positions. So maybe I'll send this over to the Pat. No, I'm joking.
I think with long hair as well, he wants.
He did say that, to be fair, yeah.
Also, you guys don't mind the height in your team, so that's another.
Got no issue with it. We've got plenty that are massive, so we can take a few short ones and average it out. It's not a problem at all. I also want to say I thought Will Wright was very good on the afternoon as well.
Yeah.
And there was a nice moment when he came over to take a corner early on. The Gills fans, I think, just in jest started to boo just for a bit of laugh, and he sort of went and raised his eyebrows, and then he got a round of applause because I thought Will Wright,
he's been superb for us this start of the season.
Yeah, he has. I think, and I thought he was very impressive yesterday. I said start of the game he will give us a chance because he'll overplay once, and he did it, I think, and it might have been him that caused it when Adai went walkabout early in the first half. But he's neat and tidy, and I've always got a lot of time for footballers that want to go and play football. He could have sat on the Gills bench and picked up a wage and played, the odd League Cup game or the trophy games.
Yeah.
No, he's gone to Neil Harris, and Neil Harris is very good in that sense. He says it's got to be best for the player. It's very rare that we say you can't go anywhere. So yeah, I hope Will Wright's a success. I'm glad we didn't give away any free kicks 25 yards from goal. I'm going to say that.
I'm glad Bradford did in the first game.
Yeah,
couldn't believe that one, hell of a hit. Yeah, I even put out on my Instagram story because that's what he does. He did that. He scored against Colchester, I think it was, in a trophy, a free kick last year. He's ridiculous at penalties as well, like too calm for my liking. And he scored a belter against Charlton in pre-season as well. I think that was a really good goal. You was there that night, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, it was a really good goal that night.
Nice goal.
But yeah, he just wants to play, and I think a back three suits Will Wright more than a back four.
Yeah, I think yesterday we played more of a 4. He was more of a right back than he was a right.
He had to keep going out there, didn't he? Yeah, because of, I think, the tweak because of you had Keller Gordon missing as well, which was a little bit frustrating for him, I'd imagine. But yeah, I thought he was super solid, and he's a threat from dead balls and free kicks and that type of thing. So, gents, as always, it's It's been a real pleasure. We got away one for sure, Reese, but we'll take it and move on to next week. Slightly quieter week this week. There is no midweek game for the first time this season, so all clubs will be able to get those players that are carrying knocks fit and refreshed for next Saturday. So we'll be back Wednesday evening, hopefully, with a Colchester van to preview next Saturday's game. And then, of course, we will be inside the Priestfield Stadium next week for another match day live, as we hope to go through the month of August unbeaten, but I'm a little bit nervous. It is a banana skin against bottom of the league. Please go and follow Dan on Twitter. Of course, you're all following Reese. Go and watch his German Gills show. It is very good. I tell you that every week. Appreciate you watching. Like I always say, this channel is nothing without you lot doing what you do. So please keep liking, subscribing, retweeting, sharing, commenting, and all of that jazz. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and up the Gills.